For 34 years, I was introduced as the family's forgotten footnote. My sister was the golden child, the one with the perfect smile. My brother was the genius, already accepted to a prestigious university. And me? I was the afterthought, the one who didn't quite fit the family portrait. The one whose name was always spoken with a slight pause, as if people were trying to remember if I even existed. It started when I was just 6 years old. My mother was preparing for a family gathering, meticulously arranging everything with the precision of a general planning a campaign. The dress code was floral, and everyone, my sister, my cousins, even a newly adopted relative we'd only known for 4 months, received a brand new outfit. Everyone except me. I remember standing in my bedroom doorway, watching my mother lay out a beautiful yellow dress for my sister. It had lace sleeves and a satin ribbon at the waist. My sister twirled in front of the mirror, her reflection glowing with anticipation. When I asked my mother what I would wear, she barely glanced at me. "That one will do," she said, pointing to a wrinkled hand-me-down in the corner. The collar was frayed, and there was a faint stain near the hem that no amount of washing could remove. "It's not like anyone will be taking pictures of you anyway." I was too young to understand the weight of those words. I thought it was about the dress, not about me. I thought if I were cleaner, quieter, better, the stain would disappear, and so would the label. But some stains don't wash out. Some stains are woven into the fabric of who your family decides you are. At the church potluck that afternoon, the sun was warm and the grass was green. My aunt held my sister's face in both hands, cooing about how beautiful she was, how she would break hearts one day. Then she turned to me, gave a pitying smile, and told a neighbor that I had the family nose. My mother was standing just 4 feet away. She heard every word. She didn't correct my aunt. She didn't say that wasn't kind. She just laughed, a short, soft laugh that sounded like agreement. I learned that day that a label isn't a temporary stain, it's a permanent paint job. A label isn't a description, it's a verdict. My mother had once dreamed of being an architect. She had the talent, the sketchbooks, the passion for creating beautiful spaces. But life happened. She traded her drafting table for a changing table, her blueprints for diaper bags. I didn't know this then. All I knew was that my sister got the spotlight, the new dresses, the framed photographs. And I got the leftovers, the hand-me-downs, the faded memories, the place at the edge of every frame. This sorting system didn't just happen at family gatherings, it organized our entire lives with ruthless efficiency. Each year, when school photo orders came in, my sister got a lavish portrait package. An 8x10 glossy for the living room wall, wallet sizes for grandparents, a custom frame for my mother's desk. I got the cheapest option, 2 wallet-sized prints for $2.50. The prints went into a kitchen drawer with expired coupons and dead batteries. They were never seen again. Birthdays were always combined with my brother's, always a shared celebration where the cake never had my name on it. My sister got extravagant theme parties, a princess party at 7, a spa party at 10, a pool party with a DJ at 12. My brother got the latest gadgets, the newest video games, the attention of every relative who asked about his future. I got a slice of cake, a vague nod, and a gift that was usually a book someone had already read. I loved to read. I devoured stories like they were oxygen. But I loved them because they offered escape, not because they were chosen for me. My mother would say, "You like reading, right?" It wasn't a question. It was an instruction. Here is what you are. Here is what you get. My brother, labeled as the smart one, played his part perfectly. He saw the dysfunction and ran, accepting a scholarship to a college 400 miles away as soon as he turned 17. He was neither cruel to me nor kind. He was simply absent. And absence, I learned, is its own form of agreement. Silence is compliance. He never defended me because he never thought I needed defending. He never saw me because he never looked. A label is a permission slip. It tells everyone around you exactly how much space you are allowed to take up, how much attention you deserve, how much effort you are worth. My family signed that permission slip when I was 6, and every year they renewed it with interest. Do you want to know how a family truly sees you? Count the photographs in their living room. My mother had a gallery wall of 14 framed pictures, arranged with the precision of a museum curator. My sister was in all 14. She smiled in every single one, her face glowing with the confidence of someone who had never been told she was anything but perfect. My brother appeared in 6. He was always angled slightly away, as if he was already planning his escape. I appeared in 3. In the first one, I was partially hidden behind a cousin at a 4th of July picnic. You could see my shoulder, the edge of my dress, and a sliver of my face if you looked closely. In the second, my face was accidentally cropped out by the frame's edge. Whoever mounted it didn't notice I was sliding out of view. In the third, I was 5 years old, squinting into the sun, holding a red balloon. That one stayed up because the balloon matched the sofa cushions. I was an accessory to the furniture, a prop in someone else's story. When my sister graduated high school, my mother took 47 photos. I know because I saw the camera roll, different angles, different poses, some candid, some staged. My sister laughing, my sister crying, my sister surrounded by friends and family. 2 years later, when I graduated with honors, my mother took one photo. I was holding my diploma, standing alone on a stage that had been filled with applause moments earlier. She didn't ask for a retake. She didn't ask anyone to join me. She just snapped one picture, said "That's nice," and put her phone away. One photo for a milestone I had worked my whole life to achieve. That summer, I started carrying a disposable camera, the yellow Kodak kind with 27 exposures. I took photos of my own life, my first apartment, my first real job, the day I achieved a major professional goal. I kept them in a shoebox under my bed. When no one else sees you, you have to learn to become your own witness. You learn that if you don't document yourself, you disappear. And I had been disappearing for a very long time. I left home at 18, a scholarship to a top architecture program clutched in my hand like a life raft. My mother's reaction was the same as it always was, dismissive, final, devastating. Architecture? She said, her voice dripping with disdain. That's not really a career for someone like you. Someone like you. 4 words that held all the assumptions my family had ever made about me. Someone like you isn't smart enough. Someone like you isn't pretty enough. Someone like you isn't worth investing in. I didn't know then that her words were a mirror reflecting her own buried dreams. She had studied architecture herself. Once, she had filled sketchbooks with beautiful buildings, dreamed of designing spaces that would stand for generations. But a pregnancy at 19 had derailed everything. She married my father, dropped out, and never drew another building again. Every time I said the word architecture, something inside her tightened. Every time I succeeded, she saw the path she had been forced to abandon. She didn't resent me because I was unworthy. She resented me because I had what she lost. On the drive to college, my father, a man of few words, finally spoke. He had spent 20 years in a house where my mother's voice was the only one that counted, and the habit of quiet had calcified into something permanent. But when he pulled up to the dormitory and set my suitcase on the curb, he said something I have carried with me for 16 years. Build something they can't ignore. 6 words. The only directive he ever gave me. He hugged me, held on a few seconds longer than usual, then got in the car and drove away. I didn't see him again until Thanksgiving. That first night in my dorm, I taped my shoebox photos to the wall, my own witness, my own proof that I existed. My roommate, a girl from Baltimore named Tara, asked about my family. I said they were fine. What I meant was, I just drove 3.5 hours to get away from them, and it's the first time I've been able to breathe in 18 years. I built my career from the ground up, one project at a time. I took an unpaid internship at the State Historic Preservation Office and worked nights at a diner called Rosie's near campus. Eggs and coffee from 6 in the evening to 2 in the morning, then up at 7 for the preservation office. The tips were bad. The diner smelled like old grease. But the preservation office had a library with files on every historic structure in the state, and I read them all. My first real project came when I was 25, a dilapidated 1920s Carnegie Library in a dying mill town in western Pennsylvania. The roof had collapsed. The town council had already voted to demolish it. I wrote a 32-page proposal arguing for restoration, complete with cost-benefit analysis, historical significance, and community impact projections. They gave me 6 months and a budget that wouldn't have covered the cost of the demolition they had originally planned. I made it work. Reclaimed lumber from an abandoned barn outside town. Volunteer labor from the local high school shop class. Negotiations with suppliers who gave me steep discounts because they believed in the project. I slept in my car 3 nights a week because the nearest motel was 40 miles away and I couldn't afford the gas. The library reopened on a Saturday in October. The town council voted to name the reading room after me. I was 26 years old. I stood in that restored building and cried, not because I was happy, but because for the first time in my life someone had seen me. By 28, I had my own studio. 3 people, including me. We specialized in courthouses, churches, post offices, the bones of small towns that everyone else had given up on. By 32, a courthouse restoration in West Virginia won a state preservation award. Regional architecture journals wrote about us. Then national ones. My family knew none of this. I had stopped sharing my successes after a Thanksgiving dinner where I mentioned my first published article, and my mother immediately pivoted to talk about my sister's new house. "That's nice, honey," she said, the words dripping with dismissal. Jolene just closed on a 4-bedroom with a pool. I built my career in silence, not because I wanted to hide, because no one ever asked. When I was 16, I had found my mother's old sketchbook in the attic. I had come home early from school, a half day, and the house was quiet. My mother was at work. My sister was at cheerleading practice. My brother was at robotics club. I went to the attic to look for a box of old encyclopedias my father said was up there, and I found something else instead. A box pushed to the far corner, labeled simply Diane College. Inside was a sketchbook, green cover, spiral bound. I opened it and found buildings, dozens of buildings drawn in pencil, then traced in ink, floor plans, Elevations, a Victorian house with a wraparound porch, a downtown storefront with arched windows, a church steeple with handwritten notes about load-bearing walls and roof pitch. They were good drawings. Not student good. Good. The kind of drawings that showed someone who understood not just how buildings looked, but how they stood up. My mother had been an architecture student. My mother had talent. My mother had dropped out because she got pregnant and married my father and never drew another building for the rest of her life. I sat on the attic floor for a long time, dust particles floating in the light from a single window. I looked at her drawings and understood something I couldn't have articulated then, but can now. Every time I talked about architecture, every time I brought home a good grade in drafting class, every time I said the word design at the dinner table, my mother didn't see a daughter. She saw a mirror she couldn't bear to look into. I put the sketchbook back. I never told her I found it. You would think that leaving home fixes things. That distance and time and a career you built with your own hands would rewrite the story. But families have long memories and short attention spans. They remember the label. They forget to look at who you became. 2 years before the reunion, I visited for Thanksgiving. 4-hour drive. Rain the entire way. My father had asked me to come. He always asked. My mother never did. When I arrived, my sister was holding court in the kitchen, describing the renovations on her new house with the kind of enthusiasm reserved for religious revivals. Quartz countertops, she was saying. Farmhouse sink. Subway tile backsplash. My mother was running her hand across the countertop like she was petting a thoroughbred. Jolene, this is just gorgeous. You have always had such taste. I sat at the table with my coffee, waiting for a pause. When it came, I mentioned the courthouse project I had just completed in West Virginia. I told them it had won a state preservation award. I showed them a photo on my phone. Silence, 2 full seconds of nothing. Then my mother said, "That's nice. Can you pass the cranberries?" My sister leaned against her quartz countertop, tilted her head, and asked, "Is that like flipping houses?" I said no, not exactly. She smiled. Well, it sounds like a hobby. After dinner, I helped with the dishes. My mother was at the sink. My aunt was drying. They thought I was in the other room, but I was right behind them, reaching for a towel. My mother said to my aunt, in the voice she used when she thought she was being discreet, "At least she's keeping busy. I just wish she would do something about." And then she made a gesture. She waved her hand in front of her own face. She didn't even say the word anymore. She just gestured, and my aunt laughed. I gripped the dish towel so hard my knuckles turned white. I didn't turn around. I finished the dishes, said goodbye, and drove 4 hours home in the dark. 6 months after that Thanksgiving, my father had a stroke. A minor one, the doctor said. He lost some mobility on his left side, but kept his speech. He was lucky. I drove 4 hours to the hospital the night it happened, my heart pounding the entire way. When I walked into his room, my mother and sister were already there. My mother looked up at me and said, "Oh, you came." Not warmth. Surprise, like I had shown up to a party I wasn't invited to. I stayed 3 days. While my father recovered, I helped organize his home office, filing insurance papers, finding his medication list, clearing out the desk drawers. That's when I found it. Bottom drawer. A manila folder, thick, held together with a rubber band. I pulled it out. Inside were articles. Every single one about me. Press clippings from small-town newspapers, printouts from architecture blogs I had never heard of. Award announcements, a scanned copy of the article from the West Virginia Preservation Journal, a photograph of the restored library. He had printed it on regular paper from his home computer, slightly pixelated, the colors a little too warm. The folder spanned 8 years. He had been collecting them since my first published project. Some of the blog printouts had URLs so long they wrapped across 3 lines, which meant he had sat at his slow desktop computer and typed them in character by character. He never told my mother. He never shared them with anyone. He just kept them in the bottom drawer, under his tax returns. I sat on the floor of his office with the folder in my lap. I didn't cry. I just sat there holding the weight of 8 years of silent witness. Later, my father saw me standing in the doorway. He looked at the folder in my hands. He didn't speak. He nodded once, a slow, heavy nod that carried more meaning than any words could have. My father never said the words, but he kept the receipts. July came with the kind of heat that turns the air visible, shimmering waves rising off asphalt, cicadas sawing through the afternoon. The annual Mercer family reunion, held every year at my grandmother's house. My grandmother had passed 3 years ago. My mother inherited the house and insisted on keeping the reunion tradition alive, not because she loved tradition, because she loved having a stage. I hadn't attended in 2 years. This year, I went for my father. His stroke had slowed him. He walked with a cane now, and his left hand curled slightly when he was tired. He still drove himself to the barber every 2 weeks. He still read the newspaper on the porch. But something in his face had shifted. A tiredness that had nothing to do with his body. He asked me to come. I said yes. Meanwhile, in my work life, something had been developing for 3 months. Nora Whitfield, the senior features editor at American Preservation magazine, had been emailing me about a profile. She was writing a multi-part series on preservation architects working in rural America. She wanted me as the centerpiece. We exchanged emails about logistics, which projects to photograph, which town officials to interview, when to schedule the shoot. Professional, measured, the kind of communication I'm most comfortable with. In one email, I mentioned I would be in town over the weekend for a family gathering. I told her it had a restored 1890s train depot worth seeing. If you're ever in the area, I wrote. I might just do that, she wrote back. I didn't think much of it. People say they'll stop by, and then they don't. That's how the world works. You make loose plans, and then life happens, and the loose plans drift away like smoke. I invited her to see a building. I didn't invite her to see my family. I pulled into the gravel driveway at noon. The yard was already full. Pickup trucks, minivans, a couple of sedans with out-of-state plates. Folding tables stretched across the grass with checkered tablecloths clipped at the corners. Coolers lined the fence. Smoke rose from the grill where my uncle's charcoal had been going since morning. I sat in my car for 3 minutes. I counted my breaths, in for 4, out for 6. A technique I learned from a therapist I saw twice in my 20s before my insurance changed. Then I got out and walked in. The greetings told the story. My sister arrived with her husband and 2 kids, hugs, squeals, the kind of welcome reserved for returning royalty. Jolene, you look amazing. My mother held my sister's youngest on her hip and beamed. I walked in. Nods. Hey, Faith. Oh, hi, my Uncle Ray, leaning against the fence with a lemonade. Good to see you, Faith. He said it like he meant it. My aunt didn't look up from the potato salad she was arranging on a folding table. She was wearing a visor and talking to a cousin about someone's divorce. My mother was holding court at the main table. She saw me, paused, and said, "Oh, Faith, you made it. I wasn't sure you were coming." She said it with a little lift of surprise, performative, like she was welcoming a neighbor who had wandered in by mistake. I found my father in a lawn chair near the edge of the yard, under the big oak away from the noise. He had his cane leaning against the armrest and a glass of water on the ground beside him. I sat in the empty chair next to his. He squeezed my hand. No words needed. Near the entrance, there was a table with pre-written name tags. Everyone had one, except me. There was a blank tag and a marker. I wrote my own name. 42 people at that reunion. I was the only one who had to write her own name. My mother had arranged seating for the main table, place cards in her handwriting, neat cursive on folded cardstock. Diane, Gerald, Jolene, Marcus, Patricia, Ray. I walked the length of the table, checked every card. My name was not there. It wasn't at the second table either. Or the third. I was expected to find a spot at the folding chairs, the overflow seating, the table where the children sat, legs swinging, ketchup on their fingers. So I sat there, between a 7-year-old named Bryson, who was building a tower out of chips, and a 10-year-old girl playing a game on her mother's phone. From the kids' table, I could see the main table clearly. My brother-in-law was talking about their new vacation property. 3 bedrooms, right on the lake. We got it for under 4. My mother leaned forward, nodding, invested, proud. My sister scrolled her phone, occasionally looking up to add a detail. A cousin I barely recognized approached me. "So, what do you do again?" Before I could answer, my aunt's voice carried across the yard. "She does something with old buildings, fixing them up or something." She waved her hand, the same hand gesture my mother used for my face. "I'm an architect," I said. Right, like on those home shows. Not exactly." My mother, from the main table, not even turning around, "Jolene, tell everyone about the beach house." I ate in silence. Potato salad. A hamburger that was slightly pink in the middle. A cup of lemonade that tasted like it had been mixed with too much water. I watched the dynamics I had been watching for 34 years. The same choreography, the same roles, the same script. I had been watching this performance my entire life. What I didn't know was that someone else was about to watch it, too. If you have ever sat at the kids' table while the rest of your family pretended you didn't exist, I see you. That invisible feeling doesn't mean you are invisible. It means they stopped looking. After lunch, the relatives drifted into the living room. Someone pulled out the photo albums. 3 thick binders with leather covers and plastic sleeves that crackled when you turned the pages. "Remember when" became the chorus of the next hour. "Remember when Jolene won the Junior Miss pageant? Remember when Caleb got into the science fair regionals? Remember when we all drove to the shore and Jolene wore that little sailor outfit?" I stood in the doorway and watched album after album. Pages of my sister's pageants, my brother's award ceremonies, family vacations where everyone smiled into the same camera. I counted across 3 albums and roughly 200 photographs. I appeared in 4. In the first, I was partially hidden behind a taller cousin at a barbecue. In the second, I was standing at the far edge of a group shot, my body angled away from the camera like I was already leaving. In the third, someone's thumb covered half my face. And in the fourth, the one I kept coming back to, I was 10 years old, standing behind a potted plant in a hand-me-down dress, and no one in the frame was looking at me. No one noticed. No one said, "Where's faith in these?" No one flipped through 200 photos and realized that a member of their family had been systematically cropped out of the record. "Jolene was such a beautiful child," my aunt said, tracing a finger over a pageant photo. "She really was," my mother agreed. I reached into the album carefully so no one saw. I slid the photo of me at 10, the one behind the plant, out of the plastic sleeve. I put it in my back pocket. 4 photos in 34 years, and in every single one, I was being erased. I needed air. Or quiet. Or both. I slipped away from the living room and walked down the hallway to my grandmother's old study. It had been converted into a storage room after she died. Boxes stacked on the desk. Winter coats hanging from the curtain rod. A sewing machine gathering dust in the corner. On the shelf above the desk, I spotted a box labeled in my father's handwriting, "Family to sort." I pulled it down. It was heavy. Inside, decades of loose photos, holiday cards, church bulletins, a few yellowed envelopes. I wasn't looking for anything. I was hiding, but what I found stopped me cold. A stack of photographs from my college graduation. 12 years old, slightly faded, printed on glossy paper, the kind you pick up from a 1-hour photo lab. There were 15 of them. My mother had taken 1 photo at my graduation. I knew this because I had counted. But my father had taken 15. Different angles. Me walking across the stage, me holding my diploma, me standing in the sun with my cap tilted, squinting, grinning, me with my roommate, arms around each other. Me alone, looking directly at the camera, my face open and unguarded. He used a disposable camera, the yellow Kodak kind, the same kind I started carrying that same year. The photos were never printed for the wall, never shared, never shown to my mother. They sat in this box for 12 years. I held one up, me at 22, in my cap and gown, beaming. I wasn't ugly. I was beaming. On the photo envelope, in my father's handwriting, "Faith's Big Day." I sat in that dusty room and held 15 photographs my father took of the daughter my mother pretended didn't graduate. 15. He took 15. I put the graduation photos in my back pocket, next to the one of me at 10 behind the plant. My pockets were getting full. I smoothed my shirt, took a breath, and walked back out to the yard. The afternoon sun had softened into that golden stretch before evening. Kids were running through the sprinkler. The grill was cooling. Someone had turned on a Bluetooth speaker playing country music too loud for anyone over 50. A car I didn't recognize pulled into the driveway. A silver sedan. Out-of-state plates. The driver's side door opened, and a woman stepped out. She was about 50, lean, dressed in a way that didn't match the reunion. A linen blazer over a simple white shirt, dark slacks, a leather portfolio bag slung over one shoulder. She looked around the yard the way you look at a room you weren't expecting to walk into. It was Nora Whitfield. She had driven 90 minutes from her hotel. She spotted me near the oak tree and walked over. "Faith, you actually came. I told you I was going to be here. You did." She looked around again. I wanted to see the train depot, but also I brought the layout proofs for the feature. I thought we could go over them. Now, if this is a bad time, I can come back. I looked at the yard. My mother rearranging the dessert table, my sister taking a selfie with 3 cousins, my aunt refilling her drink. "It's always a bad time here," I said. "Come on." I led her to the kids' table. We sat down. She opened her leather portfolio and spread out printed photos of my completed projects. Full color, high resolution. The courthouse, the library, the church in Ohio. She sat at the kids' table with me, the first person who ever chose to. It took my aunt about 12 minutes to notice. She had a radar for anything that deviated from the script, and a well-dressed stranger sitting at the kids' table with printed photographs was a significant deviation. She walked over, visor pushed back on her head, drink in one hand, smile on full display. "Well, hello. Are you a friend of someone's?" I started to speak. "Aunt Patricia, this is Nora." "She is." Patricia didn't let me finish. She turned to Nora, tilted her head, and delivered the line she had probably said 100 times in her life. The line she had polished smooth with repetition. "This is the one we don't talk about." She said it with a laugh, a casual insider laugh, like she was sharing a charming family anecdote, like it was endearing, like it was cute. Nora's face went still. Not angry. Still, the way a camera goes still before the shutter clicks. She looked at Patricia, then at me, then back at Patricia. "I'm sorry. What did you say?" Patricia doubled down. She always doubled down. "Oh, it's just a family thing. Every family has one, right? The quiet one. The plain one." She waved her hand, the same dismissive wave I had been watching since I was 6. Nora didn't laugh. She set down her coffee cup slowly, deliberately, the way someone does when they have decided something. My mother appeared at the end of the table. She had seen the stranger. Her territorial instinct kicked in before her courtesy did. "Who is your friend, Faith?" The word friend carried the weight of suspicion. I opened my mouth. Nora spoke first. "I'll introduce myself in a moment, if that's all right. I'd like to wait until everyone is listening." The air shifted. Something was about to happen that had never happened at a Mercer family reunion before. Nora leaned toward me. Low, quiet, "May I show them?" I looked at her. "They won't care." "I'm not asking if they'll care. I'm asking if you'll let me." I looked across the yard. My father in his lawn chair under the oak. My mother at the dessert table, cutting a pie with the precision of someone who needs to control even the size of the slices. My sister taking photos with cousins. My aunt circulating, performing, working the crowd. 40 years of this. 34 of them with my name attached to the wrong story. I nodded. Once, Nora stood. She smoothed her blazer. She picked up her leather portfolio. And she walked to the main table with the confidence of someone who has addressed rooms full of strangers for a living. "Excuse me," she said, not loud, not theatrical, just clear enough that the people at the main table turned. "I know this is a family gathering, and I apologize for intruding, but may I have everyone's attention for just one moment?" The yard went quiet in layers. The main table first, then the second table, then the kids near the sprinkler. Someone turned down the Bluetooth speaker. 42 people turned their faces toward a woman they did not know. My mother's smile froze. My aunt set down her drink. Nora reached into her blazer pocket. She pulled out a business card. She held it between 2 fingers and handed it to my mother. "My name is Nora Whitfield. I am the senior features editor at American Preservation magazine." A pause. My mother looked at the card, turned it over, looked back up. Nora continued. "I drove 90 minutes to be here today. Not for the reunion." And then she said the 7 words that rewrote 34 years of labels. "I am here because of her." Nora pointed at me. Not a dramatic gesture, a simple extension of her arm, palm open. The way you identify someone in a lineup. Factual, certain. The yard went silent. The kind of silence where you can hear ice shifting in a cooler 20 feet away. Nora opened her leather portfolio. She held up the first printed photograph. My restored courthouse in West Virginia. Afternoon light catching the limestone facade. This building was scheduled for demolition 3 years ago. Your daughter saved it. Her restoration won the State Preservation Award. She held up the second photo. The 1920s library in Pennsylvania, its arched windows gleaming. This was her first major project. She was 25. The town voted to name the reading room after her. A third photo. A white clapboard church in rural Ohio. Steeple restored, stained glass cleaned, and re-leaded. The congregation wrote us 63 letters. 63 families asked us to feature the architect who saved their church. She set the photos on the table, spread them out so everyone could see. My mother stared at them like someone had placed foreign objects in front of her. My sister's phone was on the table, face down, for the first time all day. Nora looked at my mother, then at my aunt, then at the rest of the family, table by table, face by face. Faith Mercer is one of the most important preservation architects working in America today. She has saved 11 buildings across 4 states. Her feature will run as our October cover story. She paused. Let the words land. And she is your family. I assumed you knew. 5 words. Delivered without judgment, without malice, just pure professional clarity. My aunt put down her drink. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. My mother recovered first. Instinct, decades of controlling the family narrative, had built a reflex that fired faster than honesty. Well, of course we knew. Her voice was bright. Too bright. The voice she used when the pastor came for dinner, or when a neighbor dropped off a casserole after my father's stroke. Faith has always been. We have always been very proud. She smiled. The smile didn't reach her eyes. It stopped somewhere around her cheekbones and stayed there, pinned in place like a corsage. I said nothing. I watched my mother lie to a room full of people who had watched her diminish me for 3 decades, and not one of them looked surprised. They were used to it. This was just a new version of the same performance. My aunt pivoted. I was just teasing earlier. Faith knows I adore her. She reached for my arm. I stepped back. Not dramatically, just enough that her hand closed on air. My sister went defensive. Her default setting. I mean, we knew she did renovation stuff. She never really talked about it. She crossed her arms, the universal posture of someone rewriting history in real time. Nora said nothing. She stood with her portfolio under her arm and watched the family recalibrate. She had seen what she needed to see. At the second table, a cousin whispered something to her husband. My Uncle Ray set down his plate. He was watching me. Not my mother. Not my aunt. Me, and then my father's niece, a 16-year-old named Samantha, who I had met exactly twice, walked over from the sprinkler. Water dripping from her hair. She looked at the photos on the table, looked at me. Wait, Aunt Faith? A town named a room after you? I looked at her. I smiled. The first real smile of the day. They did. That is so cool. Simple, honest, the contrast with every adult in that yard was devastating. My mother found me near the kitchen screen door. She had waited until the crowd thinned around the main table, until attention had scattered, until she could corner me without witnesses. She had been doing this my whole life, saving the worst conversations for private spaces where no one could verify what she said. Why would you do this? Her voice was low, controlled, the kind of controlled that is 1 degree away from breaking. Why would you bring a stranger to humiliate me? I didn't bring her to humiliate anyone. She came because she thinks my work matters. Your work. She said it twice, as if repetition could drain the word of meaning. Your work. Do you know what I gave up so you could go to that school? I sacrificed everything for this family. There it was, the script she had been reciting for 35 years, the script that turned every conversation about my accomplishments into a monologue about her losses. You sacrificed your architecture program when you got pregnant with my sister, I said. I know. I found your sketchbook. The color left her face. Not slowly, all at once, like someone had pulled a drain plug. She stared at me. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out for 3 full seconds. That is none of your business. You are talented, Mom. You are really talented. I kept my voice even. But that is not my fault. She couldn't respond to that. There was no script for it. No deflection, no victim narrative that could absorb the simple fact that her daughter had seen her talent, acknowledged it, and refused to apologize for inheriting it. My mother turned and walked to the bathroom. I heard the lock click. The woman who had spent 34 years making me invisible had just made herself disappear. The people who refuse to see you will try to hide from the truth. I know what some of you are thinking. How does a mother resent her own child for following the same dream? But that's the thing about family patterns. They don't make sense from the outside. They only make sense to the people trapped inside them. My sister found me on the porch. She was standing in the doorway, arms crossed, backlit by the kitchen fluorescents. She had a look on her face, the look of someone preparing to be reasonable while saying unreasonable things. You know, you could have just told us about your projects. I did. Thanksgiving, 2 years ago. You called it a hobby. She blinked. The memory was in there somewhere, buried under 2 years of quartz countertops and vacation homes and the comfortable assumption that she was the important one. I didn't know it was this big. That's the point, Jolene, you didn't ask. She shifted her weight, changed tactics. Look, we're sisters. Can we not do this right now? Everyone is watching. Everyone has been watching my entire life. That's the problem. Her eyes went wet. Not from guilt, from embarrassment. My sister had spent 36 years believing she was the center of the family story, the pretty one, the successful one, the one who deserved the main table and the framed photos and the fuss. She wasn't crying because she was sorry. She was crying because her position had been challenged in front of 40 people. Why do you always have to make everything about you? She said. I let the sentence hang in the air. Let everyone on the porch hear it. Let her hear what she just said to the sister who had spent 3 decades being no one. You had 36 years of everything being about you. I am having one afternoon. She stared at me, opened her mouth, closed it, turned, and walked back inside. I stayed on the porch, listened to the screen door close, watched the fireflies start to blink in the yard. I breathed slow. Even my aunt made her attempt 20 minutes later. Not with me, with Nora. She had spent those 20 minutes regrouping, reapplying her lipstick, rebuilding the performance. She walked up to Nora near the dessert table, with her hostess smile reloaded. So, Miss Whitfield, what a lovely surprise. You know, I have always told Faith she was special. She is very talented. Nora was holding a plate with a slice of pie she hadn't touched. She looked at my aunt the way an editor looks at a manuscript that isn't ready for publication. "Did you? Because about 20 minutes ago, you introduced her as the one you don't talk about." The sentence landed like a glass breaking in a quiet room. My aunt's face went red, starting at the neck, climbing upward. I was joking. It's an inside joke. "Every family has inside jokes," Nora said. "They usually make everyone laugh." She didn't smile. She didn't raise her voice. She simply stated a fact and let it sit there. From across the yard, my Uncle Ray's voice. Quiet, final 2 words. "Pat, sit down." The first time in 40 years of marriage that my uncle had ever told my aunt what to do in public. She stared at him. He didn't look away. She sat. For the first time at a Mercer family reunion, my aunt was silent, not performing silence, not strategic silence. The kind of silence that happens when you realize everyone in the room just saw who you really are. Other relatives shifted, looked at their plates. 2 of my cousins, women around my age who had grown up hearing the same labels, the same rankings, the same casual cruelty dressed up as family humor, stood from their chairs and walked over to where I was sitting. They didn't say anything. They just sat near me, close enough that I could feel the bench shift. I noticed. I didn't comment. But I felt it. Nora was still standing. She had the floor, and she used it the way a good editor uses a page, with economy and precision. Several family members had gathered, some pulled by curiosity, some by guilt, a few by genuine interest. The 16-year-old Samantha sat cross-legged on the grass in front of Nora, like she was at a lecture she had chosen to attend. Nora showed more photos. A post office in eastern Kentucky. Federal style 1887 that the county wanted to bulldoze for a parking lot. Faith wrote the grant. Faith found the craftsman who could restore the original tin ceiling. The postmaster cried at the reopening. She said he had worked there for 31 years. A one-room schoolhouse in Tennessee where my team painstakingly restored the original 1905 windows. Hand-blown glass, irreplaceable. She drove 200 miles each way for 8 months to supervise the glazier every weekend. A community center in rural Alabama, a neighborhood that couldn't afford an architect. I took the project pro bono. She said, "Buildings don't get to choose their neighborhoods, and neighborhoods don't get to choose their buildings." The common thread, Nora said, setting down the last photo, is that Faith finds value in things other people have given up on. She didn't look at my mother when she said it. She didn't need to. The subtext crossed the yard on its own. My mother had re-emerged from the bathroom. She was standing in the kitchen doorway, arms at her sides, watching. Her face was unreadable. Or maybe I had just stopped trying to read it. My sister was sitting at the main table alone, phone face down. For the first time in as long as I could remember, she was not the center of anything. I sat at the kids' table where I had always been. Except now, people were choosing to sit with me. The yard was splitting into factions, the way yards do when something true has been said out loud. Some family members clustered near my mother, the aunts who had always orbited her, the cousins who had benefited from the hierarchy. Others drifted toward me, tentative, uncertain, like people approaching a building they had been told was condemned and were now discovering was sound. I sat alone for a few minutes, let the conversations happen around me. I could hear fragments. "Did you know about this?" She never said anything. 11 buildings, a cover story. I thought about what I could do with this moment. I could stand up and walk to that main table. I could list every birthday that was combined, every photo I was cropped from, every hand-me-down dress. Every time the word ugly was used as a label, a joke, a fact, I could lay out 34 years of evidence in front of 42 witnesses and make them feel exactly what I felt every single day of my childhood. But that is not who I built myself to be. I restore things. I don't demolish them. I made 2 decisions. I would talk to my father. And then I would leave. I found Nora near her car. "Thank you for coming. I mean it. I didn't do this for drama," she said. "I did it because your work deserves to be seen. The magazine piece will run regardless of what your family thinks." "I know." She handed me a folder. The formal layout proofs for the feature, annotated with her editor's notes. "Look these over when you're ready. No rush." I took the folder and set it on the passenger seat of my car. Then I turned and walked back across the yard. Every eye followed me. Not because I was the ugly one. Because I was the one who mattered. My father was still in his lawn chair under the oak tree. He hadn't moved during any of it. Not during Nora's reveal. Not during my mother's performance. Not during any of the conversations that followed. He sat with his hands on his cane and his eyes on the yard, watching his family the way he had always watched them from the edge. With the expression of a man who wanted to speak but had forgotten where he put his voice. His eyes were wet. I pulled a chair next to his, sat down, took his hand, the one with the slight curl from the stroke. "I found the photos, Dad, in the study. The ones you took at my graduation." His chin trembled. He looked at the oak branches overhead, then back at me. 15 photos, I said. "You took 15. 3 seconds of silence. Then, in a voice I had to lean close to hear, should have been more. I reached into my back pocket, pulled out one of the graduation photos, the one of me at 22, beaming, holding my diploma, looking straight at the camera with a face that was not ugly, a face that was proud. "And the folder, Dad, in your desk. 8 years of clippings." He squeezed my hand. The curl in his fingers tightened. "I should have said something." His voice caught. "Should have fought harder for you." "You kept the receipts, Dad." I put the graduation photo in his hand. He held it the way you hold something fragile. "Keep this one in the living room, not in a box." He looked at the photo, ran his thumb across the glossy surface. The image of his daughter at 22 on the day his wife took one photograph, and he took 15. He nodded, the same nod from the hospital doorway. Slow, full of everything he never said. My mother came across the yard like weather. You could see her building, the set of her jaw, the locked elbows, the way her shoes hit the grass in hard, even strides. She had been in the bathroom. She had been in the doorway. She had been watching from the perimeter, waiting for the right moment to reclaim the stage. Faith Alalanar Mercer. Full name. The weapon of mothers who believe that naming you fully is the same as owning you. You come to my family reunion and you bring a stranger to humiliate me? I stood. My hands were at my sides. My voice was level. "No one humiliated you, Mom." Nora came to talk about my work. "Your work." She laughed, a short, bitter, cracking laugh. "Everything you have, every opportunity, came because I raised you. I fed you. I clothed you. You clothed Jolene. You gave me what was left. I treated you all the same." She said it loud enough for the yard to hear. The biggest lie in the Mercer family canon. Repeated so many times she had probably started to believe it. "There are 3 photos of me on that wall, Mom. 14 of Jolene. You did not treat us the same." Her voice rose, shaking now. You were always so difficult, so sensitive, always making everything about yourself. I let the accusation pass through me like wind through an open window. I had heard it before, 1,000 times. It didn't land anymore. I didn't make myself the ugly one, Mom, you did, and you made sure everyone knew it. The yard was silent. 40 people heard it. Nobody moved. My mother's face crumpled, not into remorse, into self-pity. The tears came, but they were the tears of a woman who had been caught, not a woman who was sorry. After everything I have done for this family, after everything I have sacrificed, this is how you repay me? I'm not repaying anything, I said. I'm leaving. My voice had not risen, not once. My mother was the one shaking. My mother was the one shouting. And I was standing still. I turned from my mother and walked across the yard. The grass was soft under my shoes. The light was amber now, that golden hour photographers love, the hour where everything looks kinder than it is. Nora was standing by her car. She handed me an envelope, the formal offer letter. Cover feature, October issue. We'll need you in New York for the photo shoot in September. I took the envelope, held it. Thank you, Nora, for everything. Thank your buildings, she said. They did the talking. I looked back at the yard one more time. My aunt was sitting in a lawn chair near the fence, alone, staring at nothing. Her visor was off. Without it, she looked smaller. My sister was on the far side of the yard, texting, her back to everyone. My mother was being attended to by 2 aunts who were performing concern the way they had performed everything, loudly, publicly, without substance. My Uncle Ray caught my eye from across the grass. He nodded, the same steady nod my father gave. The nod of a man who should have spoken up years ago and knew it. Samantha, the 16-year-old who had asked about the reading room, came running over. She was out of breath. Aunt Faith, can I come see one of the buildings sometime? Like, visit one? I looked at her. Wet hair, bare feet, eyes that were wide and uncomplicated in a way that adults lose. Anytime, I said. I'll give you the tour myself. She hugged me. Brief, fierce, the kind of hug that has no agenda. Then she turned and ran back to the sprinkler. I looked at the ground near the main table. Nora's business card, the one she had handed my mother, was lying in the grass. No one had picked it up. I walked past it. Some things are worth restoring, and some things you let go. I got in my car, set the envelope with the offer letter on the passenger seat next to the layout proofs. On top of them, I placed the graduation photo, a copy my father insisted I keep. One for me, one for you, he had said. A pact between 2 quiet people. I pulled out of the gravel driveway. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. The highway unfolded ahead of me, straight and long and empty in the way that only summer highways in the early evening can be. I drove with the windows down. I didn't turn on the radio. The wind was enough. The silence was enough. 50 miles in, my phone buzzed. A text from my father. 2 words. Proud always. I pulled over onto the shoulder. Read it twice. The screen blurred for a moment, and I realized my eyes were wet. I wiped them with the back of my hand, put the phone in the cup holder, and kept driving. I spent 34 years trying to prove I was worth seeing. Turns out, I didn't need to prove anything. I just needed to stop looking for the proof in the wrong place. Around mile 90, I passed a building on the side of the highway, an old gas station, boarded up, vines crawling the roof, weeds splitting the concrete pad, the kind of building most people drive past without a second glance. I slowed, looked at it. studied the roofline, the window frames, the bones underneath the neglect. I smiled. That one might be worth saving. I kept driving. 3 months later, the October issue landed. My face was on the cover. The face my family called ugly for 34 years, on the cover of a national architecture magazine. I was photographed standing in front of the restored courthouse in West Virginia, not smiling, not posing, just standing with my arms at my sides, looking straight into the camera the way my father taught me to stand. Steady, present, accounted for. My father framed the cover. He hung it on the living room wall, next to my sister's high school graduation photo. My mother didn't take it down. She didn't acknowledge it either. It just hung there, a quiet fact in a house that had spent decades avoiding facts about me. My sister texted once, saw the magazine. "Congratulations," I replied. "Thank you. Nothing more." My aunt hasn't spoken to me since the reunion. My Uncle Ray sent a letter, handwritten on lined paper from a legal pad. Should have said something years ago. Sorry doesn't cover it, but it's all I have. I folded the letter and put it in my desk drawer next to my father's folder. My mother didn't call. Not once. I didn't wait by the phone. That Thanksgiving, I didn't drive to my parents' house. Instead, I drove to the gas station I had spotted on the highway. I walked the property, measured the walls, photographed every angle. I submitted a restoration proposal to the county the following Monday. Pro bono. Community space. A building no one was looking at in a place everyone drove past. I knew something about that. My studio, late afternoon. The light coming through the windows was the same amber as that evening at the reunion. I let it sit on my desk, without turning on the overhead. The shoebox was still there, the same shoebox from college, now held together with packing tape at one corner. Inside, the photos I took of myself when no one else would. My first apartment. My first drafting table. The day I passed my licensing exam, all taken with disposable cameras, the yellow Kodak kind. I added 2 new photographs, the magazine cover, and the before photo of the gas station. Then I added one more. The photo of me at 10 years old behind the plant in the hand-me-down dress, the one I slipped from the album at the reunion. I held it up. Small girl. Big plant. No one looking at her. I held up the cover. 34-year-old woman standing alone, everyone looking at her. Same girl, I said to the empty room. Same girl. I placed the photos side by side in the shoebox, closed the lid, and set it on the shelf above my desk where my drafting tools used to sit. Some people keep trophies. I keep proof that I was here. Here is what I know now. You cannot restore a family that does not want to be fixed. But you can build a life that does not need their approval to stand. Every building I have ever saved started the same way. Someone looked at it and said it was worthless. And then someone else looked closer, saw the bones, saw the craft, saw what it could become if someone just cared enough to try. I was never the ugly one. I was just in the wrong room. You cannot restore a family that doesn't want to be fixed, but you can build a life that doesn't need their approval. That is my story. 34 years of labels, one stranger with a business card, and a shoebox full of proof that I was always worth seeing. If this story reminded you of your own family, if you've ever felt like the one they forgot, or the one they dismissed, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. I'm Faith, and this is Mind Unveiled Stories. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a story like this again.